Hi, welcome back to Renee Ruth Real Estate. Hope everyone's doing well. Renee, how are you?
I'm well. Look at you in your sweater in the dead of summer. I feel like we're like in stark contrast here, even though we're matchy. Yeah, I'm like super summer and he's like ready for fall.
Right, yeah.
We were just saying, I just bought for the office a little pumpkin from Bed Bath & Beyond, and the candle is sweater weather.
Sweater weather. We're ready for fall.
We're ready for sweater weather, although we are headed to a cooler front.
Yeah.
Do we start all these podcasts with a weather announcement?
We do. Well, you know, they say 60% of a dad's job is informing people about the weather.
And he is the dad of the office.
Yeah, so I feel like it is my job to make sure we talk about the weather at least once.
We always are like, oh, it's so hot, or oh, it's so cold. So you're never confused about what we're experiencing when you watch
We
this.
always know. Even if my clothing is confusing.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I
It's
just love
not.
sweaters.
You are a sweater
I just
guy.
love sweaters.
We're gonna expand.
That's right. That's
But
right.
sweaters work. It works.
Yeah, it works. It
I'm
works.
ready for the beach.
There you go. Perfect. So last night, you and Stephanie from Integrity Home Mortgage
Yes.
hosted a boot camp for first-time
Right in
homebuyers.
here. Actually, there was two. Chad did not attend,
Oh,
but
okay.
there was two buyers that sat here.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, Stephanie actually talked over
Oh,
there.
love
They
it.
just sat in these chairs, and I thought, oh, look at them. And then we had a PowerPoint, but she's a lot like me, just fly by the seat. Like,
Didn't quite
you
work.
even can make a PowerPoint, it's never gonna get used. Like, like in college when I taught university, I probably just stopped making them. Because I was like, I forget to turn them because I'm just so in the moment. Anyway, we did have a first-time home buyer boot camp because you know, America's a big military country, and like all the like the workout facilities that do their boot camps to get in physical shape, right?
Yeah.
So we played off of the boot camps of getting your body in shape to the boot camp to getting your credit and buying power in shape. So that was what we did for some of the obviously people that are here locally. I think the next time we're going to do it virtually to expand the audience.
Yeah. Well, because like you guys always say, knowledge is power.
Power, yeah. And so Stephanie, you know, she does these things, and she can work statewide.
Right.
And I can kind of work statewide, but definitely she can. So, you know, being able to include other agents in other areas and their clients. And so, yeah, the whole point of the event was knowledge is power. So knowing how to buy a home, like we don't go to school for these things.
No.
We go to school for algebra and chemistry and
Learning
biology
parallelograms.
and sine and
Certain things,
cosine and
right.
like what. This was the most sine and cosine. I was like, what?
Never
Never. Wasn't that physics sine and cosine? I don't know.
Yes.
Yes, but home buying. Oh, let's not teach them that.
No. Well, I mean, and we've even said there have been so many times that you've had people that swore there was no way they were going to be able to buy a home, and they filled out paperwork and it turns out that they could. So
Like right then and there.
Yeah. So there's
that
just
one
fears.
lady we had that, and it's based off of whatever you've heard or whatever you think you know, or you're guessing like, oh, I just came out of a divorce and I just came out of this and out of that, and I just, you know, I have these expenses I can't buy, and then you actually talk to a lender and they who very uncomfortably goes through all your finances, and I say that from very personal experience, where it's like I know what it feels like to turn your finances, you know, over to somebody else's scrutinizing eye and have them come back and be like, but I always preface it with, don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
I know it's there.
This is what it is. Just tell me what I gotta do. And that's how you need to maybe approach this as a buyer. Like, I want to hear it. Look, I've lived my life, and we're here. So how do I get there? Right? So
Exactly.
the one girl had literally signed a 12-month lease because that's how sure she was. She was like 4 weeks into her lease and found out she could afford like a $300,000 house. She's like, oh. Well, and then she couldn't even help herself after that, because once you find out what you can afford, then you start to, and somehow at night you're on Realtor. Even though you got a 12-month lease, you're like, and then you find, and this is exactly what happened. I get a text like saying, oh, I found the house that I love. And then we go and see it. She's like, I love it so much. What do we do with my lease? So, you know, as you know, leases are not necessarily impossible.
They're not. I mean, they want you to believe that it's impossible to get out of a lease. You're stuck. You can't do this or that. We have broken so many. It's absurd. Like.
And that's not breaking. Like, I hate you, lease or
No.
person. I'm leaving regardless. It's like,
Right.
hey, here's what's happened in my life.
Yeah.
Can we? And most landlords will work. Because think about this, and this is why I always tell my people that are in leases. It is that landlord, they're only guaranteed your lease for the 12 months. So
Right.
if you're 6 months in and you find someone else that will do 12, how is that not better for them?
Right, yeah.
The only time it runs into a problem is if they're sitting on vacancies.
Right.
That's not the world we live in right now.
Yeah, it's really
As
not.
of, August 11, whatever this is.
Yeah.
That's not this world, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
There are no rentals, so they can replace.
Right, yeah, I mean, the way with ours, which I thought was actually, which is not a bad way to go, so it's really just helps to ask. With ours, they would list our apartment on their site that the tenants want to move out early. So we would be responsible.
Notify people.
So we would be responsible for our rent up until the point that someone took it.
Oh,
So they're like,
you can go.
so we could go whenever, but we'd have to pay the rent until someone took it. But they can relist it on their site, say tenants want to move out early.
That's not that's
No.
awesome.
Yeah, so so that's why we were
With
happy with
hers,
ours.
we had to I had to advertise it in my street,
Right.
because they were kind of like, sorry, if you find someone, let us know. So we got busy. And
Oh,
we found someone,
yeah.
and then like I said, it doesn't hurt them to take a new 12.
Exactly. So.
Even though she was only 4 weeks in.
Oh, I know. So yeah, so they're
Well, then by the
definitely
time
ways,
she
so.
left, it was like 4 months in or 3
Right.
months in. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's really just empowering people and overcoming those fears.
Right.
Overcoming the fear of, oh my goodness, I have this side business that's just cash. Don't want anyone snooping around my babysitting money.
My sad little
This
paper
is my
trail.
babysitting. Yeah, I don't need them knowing about my babysitting money. Because I always joke about babysitting money is the money that you never pay taxes on. 'Cause
Right.
it's
Yeah, just a little
people have these
bit
side
more.
hustles all the time where they're just like, nah, and then learning too that that side hustle though, maybe you should pay taxes on that for the next few years.
Yeah.
Because that income's going to let you get your, McMansion. Not
Well, exactly. Like if you kind of know that this is what you're heading toward, start paying on it, even if it's a small amount, just so you can show that paper trail.
That's right, and you don't know that until you have that initial conversation, and this is where time literally is money because from the day you talk to a lender and learn the path,
Right.
and that's the day that's when the clock just starts to tick. So
Yeah.
it was really cool. There was I think 8 people here, 9 people,
Yeah.
comfortable amount of people. Because it's small enough that we can answer individual questions and.
Right.
And it's really, it's a good class. Like when I used to teach university, I always knew it was a good class when the kids have the listening face, I call it. Because if they're not listening, they're like this, or they're drawing. It's when they're looking at you with the scrunch. It means they're processing these words. These words are interesting to me. So I was always waiting for the scrunchy face in college, feeling like I'm giving them value for their time. So I was extended. I can't stop myself. So
Yeah.
Stephanie was actually the one speaking though, and I saw the scrunchy faces, and that's what I told her at the end of it. I was like, "You did a great job," because she's not a teacher. I was like, "You did a great job." I was like, "It was interesting. They were interested. They were captivated, and it's a voluntary audience. So involuntary audiences." Like universities are easier because whether I suck or not, you have to be here. But in the voluntary audience, there's a little more pressure because they volunteered to take their time.
To be there.
So you've got to make it valuable. But empowering people with finances and home purchasing, it's almost impossible to not add value, especially because most of us just literally don't know.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
Literally don't know.
Yeah. So you guys hit 4 topics in this boot camp.
That we made a funny little video.
Oh, it was so good.
We kind of hit the 4 big things.
Yeah.
That tends to be the things that scare people away from doing or pursuing the possibility of buying. And so we're not even pursuing buying, just pursuing the possibility.
Right, just getting to the point that you
Just
actually
to the
you're
point
good.
where you say, let's try this. These are the 4 things that usually stop them and make them believe that they can't.
Yeah.
So Stephanie and I did a video in the office where we put all 4 things on a piece of paper because it's a boot camp.
Yeah.
And then Stephanie because she's the lender, was scrunching them up, and then I'm the potential buyer who's those are supposedly my concerns. And she's got me doing a push-up or doing a plank, and she's throwing the concern at me, being like, "You got this!" And I'm sitting there doing the exercise. So it's this kind of mesh of, and then we were playing off that 1980s vibe. Do you remember that army commercial where they were go Army. No, they'd be like, we want you, and there's some like big finger in your face on TV about how they.
Oh, it was so perfect. I love it.
So he spoofed like the 80s, and everyone's like, this is called like a super 80s vibe. I'm like, great.
Exactly. Did we
You got
accomplish
the
it?
assignment. You got the assignment.
All right, so you're not a lender. She's not a lender.
I am not a lender.
She's a real estate agent. So speaking from your perspective, we'll go over the 4 topics.
Yes, as an agent.
As an agent.
Because
So-
technically, as agents, we can't discuss lending
Right.
things, but we can discuss kind of the processes.
Processes,
Yes.
concerns, all of that.
Yes.
So the first one was past bankruptcy, which we kind of have seen this a lot recently. So
Oh my
this is a good one to talk
This
about.
has been fun for us.
Yeah.
So, I've never filed for bankruptcy.
I have.
Oh, so you know about it.
Yeah.
Why did you help this for me?
No, yeah.
So not
No,
like
you
information,
did
tell me
because
that.
no, because we tried to buy a house, so you would have done that.
Only if you, so haha, this is the thing.
No, we didn't get far enough.
We did, no. Well, we did. You should
Oh, that's true. We
qualified.
did, yeah.
You
So
qualified.
that didn't stop me.
No, but the thing is, unless you actually tell me, the lender cannot disclose, like,
Oh,
so
so
it's
you
got,
didn't.
no, and unless that was, and we don't typically, I don't necessarily have that conversation, like, this is where things can get a little convoluted when you're going to help someone sell, buy, and you're in the different roles.
Right.
Because if, she can't disclose somebody's personal finances, and I mean, I could ask, and if you volunteer it, that's
Right.
acceptable.
Yeah.
But I can't ask the lender or
Right.
the title guy or any of that. So I don't think because all I knew is, and back then we were friends. We were like,
Yeah.
and I just sent you to Stephanie, so I don't know what happened. I just know Stephanie goes, here's what they qualify for, and then we kind of went hunting.
Right.
So you learn more. I don't think at that point I'd had a lot of experience with bankruptcy in the business.
Mhm. And that wasn't even the issue.
There was no.
So that wasn't even
because you were
that
out
wasn't even-
already.
Yeah, because I was out. That wasn't even a factor. So yeah, so bankruptcy doesn't have to determine.
No, and this is a
At
lot
all.
of the stuff that people don't know in 2 ways. I've met people that are in the middle of bankruptcy and think they can buy. That's a no.
That's a no.
That is a no. That will stop you. We won't be able to crumple that paper up just yet. But then recently I had somebody that was, and I'm trying to think who the client was now. It was very recent, and they had just come out of bankruptcy. And I thought that once they're out, they're fine. Because like when you get out, you can get credit cards, and like all of a sudden
Right.
everybody wants you when you're out of a bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So I just assumed that meant that the bank was willing to support them as well. That's also a no. So apparently you've got to be out of it 2 years.
Yeah.
You knew that, see?
Yeah.
I didn't even look. So
Yeah, you have to be out of it for, and it also depends on which one it is.
The 7 or the
7 or the 13.
oh, 13.
So, because one of them is you're paying back the bankruptcy, the other one was a wash, but also is the one that we were in, because ours was a wash, we had to wait 10
You're in the
years.
13.
So it would have been the 13. So then the 7, it drops off your credit score
Oh,
after
two.
7 years.
But you can buy after
You
2
can
years.
buy after 2. Yeah.
But
So-
your 13 doesn't fall off for 10 years.
Right. So it won't fall out
But
of
you
your credit
probably could
score.
buy
But you
sooner.
can buy sooner than that. Because like I
3,
said,
was it 3 or 2?
because at that point when I tried to buy with you, it had been off. Yeah, because it had been off for it closed out for 3.
3. So I think
Yeah.
the 13 is 3.
So the 13 is 3.
If you know better than us, we're not
Right.
lenders. We're just kind of like we've learned this.
But this is
lesson.
from personal experience, so
His is personal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and then
yeah.
we even like have 2 right now where the person on the selling side is in bankruptcy.
and that doesn't make sense to me.
Isn't that wild? Well, so, I've only till this summer ever dealt with the buyer being in a bankruptcy. But so like you're in a bankruptcy, you're a homeowner, but it does make sense because if you are calling bankruptcy, it's because you have no money,
Right.
right? And you need assistance.
Yeah.
So depending on which one you file for, 7 or 10, or 13, why am I saying 10? 13, I think in the 13 you have to give up, like, how does your house factor? Because that's equity.
So like they're gonna want to take.
The equity
They're
at
gonna take
least, I don't know if they're gonna
something.
take the house, but they want,
Right.
so the one that we have, I think, I'm guessing, again, it's not my client, I can't ask, but I'm guessing it's a 7 because the house was not included. So I think the 7, because you could pick and choose,
Mhm.
maybe, and she was on a payment plan, no, it was 7, she was on a payment plan.
Okay. Yeah.
The one that we're in, the most recent one that came next, I have no idea what's going on with that one.
Mm.
Because it's an error, there's 5,
Others 5
siblings,
kids, yeah.
and one of the 5 is in a bankruptcy. Oh, so it does turn into a problem when you, and I think the ultimate lesson from all this is to show all your cards.
Right.
Because you can't hide a card.
Yeah, no.
There's no, you could hide it for a time, but so you might as well just throw your cards on the table and ask for the best possible solution.
Right.
Or find out how to get to the best possible solution. But, you know, when you find out in the 11th hour, it just causes everybody problems. Like, it's
Right. And I would have assumed that, and if this isn't part of the process, I would think it would be with everything that the lender is collecting. Would that not be something they would have asked?
a buyer would find that out sooner than a seller.
Got it.
Because the seller's coming from
seller.
title.
Okay, so they're not.
And I was just talking to Stephanie about this because, so our title guy, who's so lovely, it's Skip. Title work is typically, because you gotta think, you don't want to do all the title work if it falls apart at the home inspection, or so you're not doing title work necessarily the day you get the contract.
Right.
So this is I said to Stephanie, I go, okay, so we have a possible problem here because I'm wondering if we're going to see more bankruptcies because the pandemic and unemployment, like people are just gonna be like, I'm over my head.
Yeah.
Right? So I wonder if we're going to see more of them. And when it's a seller who's doing this, it won't show up until, Skip, we're 10 days out from close, Skip's doing his title work, and guess what we find? Didn't know about it before that. Because we don't know, like, as an agent, you only know what your seller tells you, the tax records show, like I can only find out so much. But that's what I mean, like you can't hide forever. Title's gonna dig up all your business. Like they're like, you can't be, you can't have someone that worked on your home and you still owe them money to where they actually put a lien on your home to get that money. And then think it's gonna disappear when you sell. Or like we have historic districts. I know they're all over the United States. But in our historic district, you know, there's the guy that owned it had done work. I am certain he knew. Had done work and had not gone through the proper channels with the historic district. So I didn't think to ask because I learned a lesson. And so she closed, and literally 4 days later, she's got a notice saying she's going to be called to court in 30 days if she doesn't make right the fact that there was a deck that was built without the permission from the Historic Society. And I'm like, are you serious? So like, now that's not going to come up anywhere. So now it's my job as an agent now if I'm selling in a historic district, and if you're an agent listening to this, if you have historic districts in your area, before your buyer purchases a home, or even your seller, because the listing agent said she had no clue, but even if you're listing historic, be like, are you clear with the Historic Society?
Right.
Because if you're not, we're gonna have problems when it closes. And what's sad is that a seller could be crappy, know there was a problem, leave it, because they know once it sells, it isn't their problem anymore.
Right, 'cause it stays with the house.
It stays with the house. So that just makes them really crappy. And like a good person would try to make it right.
Yeah.
Of course, this guy's just like, I don't know. And I would be like, for real? Like you built a whole structure on the back of your house and you didn't know?
Right.
Like you're telling me that the Historic Society didn't notify you, but 4 days into ownership, she's notified? Like,
yeah.
I smell a rat. So
yeah.
the lessons are just nonstop in our business.
Yeah.
So yeah, bankruptcy is a thing that is not detrimental. It just has specific guidelines that we can't manipulate those. Yes, and educating yourself on where you are in the process and what you need to do, because like, you know, you're rebuilding your credit when you come out, so you have 2 years to work on getting your credit to a great place as well. So like, there's just so much opportunity that if you don't educate yourself and you just fly by the seat of your pants, you're gonna end up not where you want to be in 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, which leads right into the next one. So the second topic was low credit score. Also very feasible to work with.
Yeah, so a lot more than you would think.
Yeah, so much easier to work with.
So there's so many, like a personal story. I was in dire straits financially. Like you told me about your bankruptcy. I had
sharing time. Sharing time.
Get to know some was in a situation in life that was not great, and I ended up in $60K unsecured credit card debt. It was not closed.
No.
It was life, and so I was looking at credit counseling. I was looking at those companies that claim that they'll take your credit and go on behalf to the creditors. and like apparently they can get the payments down. And I even called to set up an appointment and managed to tell my lender friend Stephanie, and she screamed, she goes, cancel that appointment right now! You don't need that. They're not gonna help you. They're gonna, and then I found out like guys, this is sad. Like there's entire businesses that are out there to capitalize off of your misfortune.
Oh yeah.
It's just, when I found out what they actually do, I was like, oh, what? Like, cause again, like I'm educated in many ways. Finances is not one of them.
Yeah.
So I've learned so much in my years of living, just because we're not taught that stuff unless you go into finance.
Right, exactly.
Who does that? So, just kidding. So, I obviously canceled my appointment, and Stephanie looked at my credit score. Obviously that much debt, my credit score was tanking. I was like, I was below 600, and I was wanting to refinance my house. And so, this is why it matters who you get as a lender, because Stephanie has educated herself so much. She's not just good at mortgages, she's good at finances, and she's good at credit. She knows how to better your credit. She knows what to do. It's basically free credit counseling.
Yeah.
I tell her that. She does free credit counseling. Because she did it for me. She's like, here, Renee, here it is. Here's all your debts. I have all my cards laid out. She's like, you need to pay each card. And she gave me an amount. It was so bizarre because the amount that I had to pay down to improve my credit score was so obscure. Like, it would be like, you need to get this credit card down to $2,361.42. And I'm like, so I'm just gonna get it down to 3,000. Like this 62, like, and then and each card had this random amount. So I had started a list, and it was actually really exhilarating to like take hold of my finances and then like work to put that money somewhere. Like I started so now the money that I'm coming in, I even though it's weird because I hadn't changed how much I was earning. I just changed how I approached what I was earning.
Right.
And because again, I wasn't just going out frivolously spending money. I just couldn't figure out how to get out of where I'd gotten. I was like, I just don't know how to get out of it. Like, don't really know how I got here. I just don't know how to get out. And yeah, I think it took me very hard work, probably 8 months maybe.
Okay.
And then I got my credit score up to I was almost at 7. If I wasn't at 700, I was just over it. Yeah. Which is, you really want your score, because your score relates in some kind of a way to rates.
Right.
And that's the thing. People think that a mortgage is equal to what you earn. Like, I can get more money to purchase a home if I can earn more money. That's only partially true. So we talked about that too. So I was able to refinance my home, and I was able to get my credit score up, and then it just turned into I was saying last night at the event, I was like, kind of once you start to learn about your credit, start watching your credit, it turns into something that you just kind of do. Like you're paying attention. Like little tip, that Stephanie told me, she goes, the credit, you gotta pay to play. In this world, you gotta pay to play. You can't get a credit score unless you go into debt.
Right.
And so you have to go into debt to get a credit score, which is what I mean pay to play, because meaning you want to hold a 10% revolving credit. So keep 10%. Let's say your credit card is $3,000 limit. You want to keep $300 on it every time the billing cycle comes around, because when you hold $300, that's the whole pay to play. I used to pay it down to nothing before I got tanked, before life crushed me. On my living by myself, I would just put my expenses on and pay it down. Put my expenses on and pay it down. I just thought that was me being a good credit person. I didn't know that was not helping me at all.
Right. No. You wouldn't think that.
No. So I find out from Stephanie that you never want more than 30% on there. So this is what was crushing me when I was 60 in debt, is that I had maxed out 6 or 7 cards. So I had, the most you ever want to have over month to month is 30%.
Right.
You never want to go below 10. And if you keep that going, the credit gods think you're a genius. And they bestow you with the highest score available. Yeah,
that's amazing.
So that's apparently the secret. And I mean, if you're listening to this and feel differently, I'm only relaying what I learned from my own personal experience. And we are always open to new information. But yeah, that's what we've been told is the best way to, establish great credit. So what you want is someone who can take the credit that you have, tell you how to pay it off correctly. Because so apparently my score would not go up if I went below that 360, $3,262.41. If I went too far under that, it would be a problem. Like it was just, you know what I'm saying? Like it was a very specific place that I had to go. So I couldn't tell you to get there. If you're listening to this and you're like, who's that person? Her name is Stephanie Tomlin. She works at this moment for Integrity Mortgage. But you can find her on Facebook, Stephanie Tomlin. I don't have her phone number. Remember when we used to know people's phone numbers?
I know, right? No, never anymore.
Do you remember?
I do. I knew everyone.
Because you'd have to go home and like punch it, or if you go back far enough in time, you had to spin it.
I know. I still have to go back to my contacts and be like, what is her phone number again? No.
But I feel like I should learn that in case like everything tanked. But then if everything tanked, they wouldn't have cell phones.
Exactly. So.
What's the point? No one has it.
We just have to run over and find them.
The phone number would not matter.
Right,
The street address is more
important. Put on your shoes.
Yeah, keep running shoes.
All right, number 3 is student debt.
Student debt. Okay, this is a sad story. Right back when I first started working, I met 2 nurses. And this relates to the credit thing, because I thought, oh, nurses make great money. They just got out, they're making great money. 2 of them, husband and wife. I'm like, they must have decent income, and they told me they had decent income. So, not really knowing any better, they're just like, we like this house, and it was like $400,000 maybe. And I was like, I mean, I didn't know enough to do the numbers, but I was like, yeah, I'm sure you can probably get something like that. They loved it. We went in, they loved it, so I wanted to make an offer. This is before I strongly encourage people to get pre-quals before they find their dream homes, because I experienced this. So these people went in, and then I was like, hey, so I'm writing up the offer, doing the work, and Stephanie, I sent them to Stephanie, she calls me, she goes, they can't buy that house. I said, what? Their student loans are in excess of 6 figures.
Oh.
And she's like, they can buy, but it's like, it was half that is what they could afford to buy. And I was like,
ooh. And
I already knew half that was like a double wide on an acre of land in the country. And this was like a little McMansion. And I'm like, so how do you break that news?
Right.
I was like, oh, so I said to them, I'm like, hey, you guys, I was like, so Stephanie said your DTI is out of whack. Can we, here's the thing, you can still buy, we just can't get that house. But we could look at something. They were so upset, they quit hunting, and I never heard from them again. Ooh. Because it's so weird. It's not that it was my fault, because it wasn't. But I think as humans, we tend to, it's the association, right? This is a bad experience for me. When I do this going forward, I don't want it. So for me, going after that moment, I told Stephanie, like, I'd like to not take some, like, I actually say to them, okay, if we see this, like, because I don't want to go through that again. Like, it was so discouraging to me to lose them as a client, go through that whole emotional experience. And I thought, because I'm one of those, like, how do I make sure this never happens again? So I learned a lot about student debt, but it doesn't, you just heard that story, it doesn't cripple you, it changes what you can afford because of the debt to income ratio. Right. So, I happened to, like, she was saying last night that, for conventional loans, the DTI might be 45%. So that's the highest debt. And she said, like, that 45% is your mortgage, car payment, like all the bills that they can physically see coming in and out. Okay. It's not your groceries, because that's not a bill, that's optional. It's not your gas, it's not a bill, right? But they're looking at your credit card expenses, or, the bills that are these revolving debts, they're adding them up, and then they're matching that against your income. And if it's over a certain percentage, you're kicked out. You can't, you're kicked out of buying maybe in that range or at all.
Right. So all right, so the last one.
Yeah.
Lack of funds.
Lack of funds. What she said, she goes, lastly, lack of funds. I thought she was so funny. And it's so funny, people got so offended at that video, and I was like, what? Like,
that was perfect.
Yeah, well, I'm not offended. One person was offended, and then her son thought it was dumb. But, he's 20-something. And here's what I learned, is you can't make everyone happy. We're just trying to, like, take a fun, unique approach to something that's usually very scary and make it super light and easy. But, lack of funds. So, this is a huge thing that I definitely didn't know until I became a realtor. In fact, when I first bought my house, I wish I would have known this, because I was under the impression that I had to put 3% down as a first-time home buyer.
Right.
What I've learned is that could have been a conventional loan. So I found an agent who had a lender, and I didn't vet either of them out. And I thought that once you find people, that's who you have to stick with, which is why I constantly tell people I'm like, you don't have to use And then I validate all the reasons why you should. You know, I'm like, you should want to. I mean, these are my qualifications. You know, I'm, you know, top 5 agent in the area, and I'm, you know, top 2% of my company. But you don't have to use me.
Right.
So I say that because I had a horrible first-time home buying experience because I didn't know that, and the people that I was working with were new and didn't and I didn't get the service I needed, and I didn't know the options I had at my, you know, so I put 3% down,
Right.
and I didn't even know there was I didn't even know that there was a grant that you could get where I could put 1% down, the government would kick me back 2%. It's like what? Like. All the things that I'll never get again unless I rent for 3 years and then I'm considered a first-time home buyer again. So if you're listening and you've never, and you were a homeowner and now you've rented for a while, 3 years you're considered a first-time home buyer again, and all those perks are yours. So find out what they all are.
Seriously.
Because I didn't even know.
I had no idea.
I didn't even know they were first-time home buyer.
I knew that. I knew that one from the first one that we had tried to buy. Luckily, the agent that I had
knew that,
and that was why she approached me. So
because she knew you were a first-time home buyer.
yeah, and she's like, there are programs we can use, there's ways we can, because I was like, we don't have any money, I said, my score's any good, so I was like, of course, all the things that you think are going to stop you from being able to get a loan.
Yeah.
She's like, no, that's fine. There's things that we can do. There's things we can look at. So she told me about all the programs, which I appreciated.
Well, then I learned that there's like 0 down.
Yeah.
I was like, that 9,000 I could still have in my pocket right now. Like, just so many things. So I was like, okay. And so, you know, that's the whole point of this last thing. We've helped people buy a home that literally have like $100 in their bank account,
Yeah.
and we still get to close. Like the thing we said it last night. Like the thing that you have to have is you gotta have an EMD, earnest money deposit.
Right.
It's gotta come from a bank account that's in your name. I've learned all these things the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
Client gets mom to send the earnest money, and now we have a problem. Like everything has to be in your name because you're the one buying.
Right.
And it's gotta be available as cash or check funds to be held for close. And depending on if you're 0 down, that money comes back to you at the end.
Right.
You know, if assuming you get closing costs covered, which that's not for this podcast.
Yeah, no, that's another day.
That's another podcast, another day. So that was a thing, and then also the fact that like, you know, you only need to then have, if you want it, a home inspection, which can go on a credit card.
Oh, sure.
And won't affect your, you know, like I've never had a lender be concerned about that going on a credit card.
Right.
And then your appraisal fee, which can also go on a credit card, and the appraisal fee is about $525.
Okay.
So you're looking credit-wise at close to $1,000
Okay.
if you're not having to put anything down, and then and you get your closing costs covered,
Right.
and then you know, so minimum like $1,000, but available on credit.
Right. That's not bad.
And then like at least $500 that you can ship. So most people can scrounge up $500
Yeah.
in a week.
Right.
You know.
Exactly.
Or if you've just started and you know you're actively looking, start shoving the money
Yeah. That's an account.
into the account so that you can have that for the deposit, because that's the only thing. But I always tell them, like, you just put a deposit down on an apartment.
Well, I know.
There's a difference.
No.
Like that sum of money seems doable for
And it's
you.
usually more than $500.
It's usually the first month, which is like $1,000. That's what I'm saying. Like so for me, that's the thing. This is the thing. Like for me, that first time, the amount you need, the basics that you need to buy a home are no different than the deposit you're gonna put on a place you're gonna rent.
Yeah.
That and to wrap up this whole idea, because I know we're like, this is a longer podcast
It's a longer.
than usual.
It's a longer story.
Longer than usual. To sum it all, we probably could have broken them out to the individual, but to sum the whole idea up, you know, if you're renting that is 100% rate to somebody else, like you're like, people are complaining about the fact that the rates have gone up, and it's like, well, what's 6.5 to a bank when you're giving 100% to your landlord?
Right.
100% to your landlord,
Yeah.
or it's 6.5, or it's 8, or you know. In case you didn't know, it was like 18% in our parents' day. 18%, and we still bought houses because 18% to own was better than 100% to rent.
Right.
So sometimes you just need a little perspective. We just came out of a crazy time on so many fronts. And the time's done, it's gone. So there's no sense crying over spilt milk. It doesn't change the fact that homeownership is still the best approach.
Yeah. Absolutely. Love it. Oh, this was so good.
It was so
That was
fun.
great. I love that. I'm sorry I missed it.
Alright.
That would have been so good to
Well,
be
so
in.
am I, because a lot of things went wrong. That could have been helped.
Yes, I was
Could have
missed.
mitigated if my assistant had been present.
Yes, that's all right.
Next time.
That's all right. Next time. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time.
Cheers.